A very good evening to all. Now we will discuss preparation for radiological interventions. Intervention Interventional radiology offers many techniques that avoid the need for surgery, and they use the minimally invasive procedures. A patient generally requires a small incision or a needle prick instead of multiple stitches, which are generally required in traditional surgeries. So the patient preparation is almost the same as for the surgical procedures. Uh, there should be a beforehand conversation between the referring physician and the intervention radiologist about the procedure, what is the exact indication of the procedure, and what is the expected outcome of physician is expecting from the interventional radiology procedure. And for the instructions for the physician before an examination is that there should be a clear-cut written order for what the procedure is to be done. Few pre-op lab investigations. This should be within 2 week period, like the complete blood count, the basic metabolic panel like the LFT, KFT, coagulation profile, PT, INR, APTT, and the viral marker. In the current era of COVID-19, we are including COVID-19 RT-PCR mandatory for any interventional radiology procedure, and that report should be within the period of 7 days, not beyond 7 days. And one should also make note of any past and present relevant medical history. Any drug or allergic reaction history should be told to the interventional radiologist beforehand. And for the patient, the instructions are most commonly these procedures are to be done and in the early hours, and patient has to be kept nil orally for at least 4 to 6 hours, or preferably overnight. So the patient are not allowed to eat or drink after midnight before procedure. And in the morning hours, patient blood pressure is to be recorded, and any medication which the patient is taking for heart medication like for the blood pressure should be given beforehand in the morning with a sip of water. Until unless told otherwise, that medication has to be given. And about discontinuing the aspirin or the blood thinners, this is not always true for the interventional radiology procedure, like it is for the open surgical procedure, where aspirin and the blood thinner are to be avoided at least 3 to 7 days before the surgery. In interventional radiology procedure, we are giving aspirin, we are giving dual antiplatelet for the endovascular procedure where stenting and angioplasty is done. And for the blood thinners, like the anticoagulants which we are giving, uh, we are generally, for some procedures, for the endovascular procedure, which are done through the arterial route, we are generally shifting the oral anticoagulant patient to heparin before doing the procedure. And for the percutaneous procedures, depending upon the type of procedure, if indicated, then only we are stopping the anticoagulant, otherwise they are not stopped. And for part preparation, of the site of entry, most if the procedure is endovascular done through the groin puncture site, then the groin saving or the cleaning of the groin area should be done, or any other area from where the site of entry into the body is expected, like from the brachial root or the radial root, the hair should be removed beforehand. And before sending a patient to the interventional radiology room, peripheral venous access should be placed preferably in the ward, or if not placed in the ward, then the first thing to be done in the interventional radiology suite is to get a peripheral venous access. The interventional radiology procedure have been divided into three categories depending upon the risk of the bleeding or the bleeding that can be easily detected and controlled. For category 1, these are procedures with low risk of bleeding, and these are like paracentesis or thoracocentesis, PICC line insertion, exchange catheters, venography, superficial biopsy, joint injection and aspirations. consent is mandatory for each and every procedure, interventional procedure, and that has to be taken either from the patient or from the first degree relative. And before starting any interventional radiology procedure, uh, indication of procedure, the risk, the complication, early and late complications should be told beforehand to the patient and to the first degree relative, also the first degree attendant which is accompanying the patient. Uh, this way, the anxiety of the patient and the relative also get settled. And you can also tell about the early and late complication, the expected outcome, what we are expecting from this procedure. And if there are the failure rates also, then one should also talk about the failure of the procedure. We are trying to do a procedure. If we cannot do a procedure, then that is a failed procedure. And what would happen to if the procedure is failed? And a written consent should be taken beforehand from the patient or the first degree relative, and these all the information which I just now told should be explained to the patient uh, or the and the relative in the language they understand before undertaking any radiological procedure. And for the category 1 patients, PT-INA and the platelet are not routinely recommended. Creatinine is to be done only for the patient where the venography or IVC filter is required. And the INR, here you can say INR up to 2, you can do these procedures can be done. But the platelet count should be more than 50,000. And the category 2 are the procedure with moderate risk of bleeding like the abscess drainage, angiography, embolization, diagnostic and therapeutic embolization, thrombolysis, angioplasty, biopsy of the solid organs like the liver, lung, pancreas, and chest tube insertion, gastrostomy insertion, percutaneous cholecystostomy, and the transjugular liver biopsy. Again, the consent is to be taken from the patient and from the first degree relative. PT and serum creatinine are to be done routinely. Platelet count has to be more than 50,000. INR, here you can see the INR should be less than 1.5. The third category procedures are with the high risk of bleeding. That is, and those site of bleeding are difficult to be detected or controlled, like the bleed drain procedures, nephrostomy tube insertion, and the kidney biopsy. Again, the INR and platelet are to be done, and INR should be less than 1.5, platelet count more than 50,000. Biopsies form a large bulk of the interventional radiology procedures, and for the biopsy of the superficial organs like the thyroid, cervical node, inguinal node, axillary node, these are the type 1 category 1 patients, and these are the category 1 patients, and INR up to 2 can be done, and platelet count should be more than 50,000. And the biopsy of the solid organ, the deep organ like the lung, liver, pancreas, parotid lymph node, these follow in the moderate risk group. And again, INR should be less than 1.5 in these patients. And every biopsy should be done in the morning hours. Here we have written it's before 1 p.m. It should be done within in the morning hour, so that the sample can be added, so that the sample processing can be done in the pathology suite. And for the transjugular liver biopsy, again, it's a moderate risk procedure. The kidney biopsy are the high risk group procedure, and this again should be done in the morning hour. The neuroradiological interventions, the preparation is almost the same. Patient has to be kept nil orally after midnight, and early morning he has to take all his medication with a sip of water. Like the anticoagulants, if the patient is on anticoagulant, switch over to the heparin, and INR should be around 1.5. Again, it's very important to describe the procedure in short to the patient and to the patient attendant before patient has to undergo procedure. It has to be explained. Again, the risk, the complication, the immediate and the late complications, the failure rate, everything has to be explained. and review of all the previous imaging should be done before intervening the patient. So patient should always carry his imaging to the angiographic suite. It's a mandatory thing. Uh, Review the imaging beforehand also one is going for intervention. Most of the interventional radiology procedures are done under local anesthesia, but some of the procedures require general anesthesia. And these are those procedures where the procedure time is long, patient is uncooperative, or the procedure demands very high precision, and the margin of error is very less. So for procedures which are to be done under general anesthesia, few more uh, investigations, prior investigation need to be done, like the electrolyte, blood electrolyte evaluation, the LFT, the KF, the LFT has to be done, the ECG, the chest X-ray has to be done, and if it is always better to get the pre-anesthetic checkup beforehand, before a night before the procedure is to be done. And if one is expecting a longer duration of the procedure, or a high risk is there, like in the intracranial procedure, the neuro interventions, one should arrange a ventilator support post procedure beforehand, before intervening the patient. Not only the interventional and the interventional workup is important, the post procedure also, one should look for any increase in the site of puncture. At the site of puncture, one should be watchful at the site of puncture whether there is any increase in the swelling or not. If the patient has undergone any endovascular procedure from the groin side, that side of the limb has to immobilize, depending upon the arterial or the venous access has to be immobilized from 4 to 8 hours, and one should be watchful for the any fall in hemoglobin in post procedure. If there is breathlessness after a patient has undergone a lung biopsy, it's very crucial to get a immediate repeat chest X-ray and to look for any increase or new pneumothorax formation. Any decrease in sensorium of the patient post procedure in the ward or in the ICU, please inform the interventional team. They will then decide what for the imaging or intervention has to be done. And if a contrast is used, it's always better to do post procedure hydration. Patients should be hydrated for at least 24 to 48 hours so that the contrast gets washed out from the body. And for the diabetic patient, there are certain guidelines from the certain recommendations from the American College of Radiology about stopping the metformin drug. Most of the diabetic patients are on metformin drug. So metformin patients who have to undergo interventional radiology procedure where contrast has to be given, the metformin, whether to stop metformin 48 hours before the procedure or not, is the crucial question. So the American College of Radiology has recommended few guidelines, and they have said they are again divided into three categories. In category 1, patients are with the normal renal function and no known comorbidities, so they do not require any discontinuation of the metformin. For the category 2 patient which have multiple comorbidities and but have a normal renal function, again uh, metformin has to be stopped before the procedure and up to 48 hours post procedure, but repeat renal function test is not recommended. And for category 3 patient with known renal dysfunction, metformin has to be stopped before the procedure and has to be started uh, reinstituted slowly after renal function assessment is done. And for the use of prophylactic antibiotics for the interventional radiological procedure, the Society of Interventional Radiology has made a standard of practice, and they have again divided the procedures according to the type of wound, about whether the wound is clean, contaminated, or dirty. Like the clean wound procedures are the conventional angiography, which is a clean wound procedure. The clean contaminated procedure are like the nephrostomy tube procedure, placement without any prior infection. Or the contaminated procedure are like the percutaneous bilirubin procedure in setting up bilio entry anastomosis or in sphincterectomy, or percutaneous cholecystostomy to plates for acute cholecystitis. The dirty procedures are like the abscess drainage or the percutaneous nephrostomy drainage of pyonephrosis. So they have divided it according to the type of wound, and mm, antibiotic prophylaxis has to be given according to the type of wound, and the timing of the antibiotic is prophylactic antibiotic is 1 hour before the procedure incision is given. If the procedure time is long, then after 2 hours it can be repeated. Again, for the long list of interventional radiology procedure which have been divided according to the type of wound, we would just see few of the commonly done procedures in our hospital, like the diagnostic cranial angiography. Prophylaxis is not required, angioplasty and the stenting, again the prophylaxis is not required. For the endograft placement, prophylaxis is required. A single dose of prophylaxis is recommended. And the catheter directed thrombolysis, again prophylactic antibiotic is required. The uterine artery embolization, the single dose of prophylactic antibiotic is recommended. The hepatic embolization and the chemoembolization, again the use of prophylactic antibiotic is recommended. The PTBD, the TIS procedures, both require prophylactic antibiotic. Biopsies don't require a prophylactic antibiotic unless there is a transrectal prostatic biopsy done which requires a prophylactic antibiotic. For the PCD and the tunnel permacath or the chemoport, prophylactic antibiotic is recommended. Now, if we summarize our talk, uh, for any interventional radiology procedure, the basic pre-op investigations should be done and should be evaluated before a procedure is undertaken. And there should be clear-cut instructions from this patient, from the referring physician side about the indications for the procedure and what the expected outcome is there. And the review of prior imaging and planning of procedure with specific indication must to determine the best course of therapy. Thank you.